Hello. Wow, that was quick. I didn't even have to whistle. Well, thanks very much, everybody, for coming and joining us today on this beautiful pre-spring day. It's hard to believe that we're not already there. But it's with great pleasure today that I introduce Professor Colleen Medill. Professor Medill joined the faculty in 2005. Been here for 10 years? 4. We're just over 10 years now from the University of Tennessee School of Law. She's a nationally recognized expert in employee benefits, and she's been recognized as an expert through many, many honors. She's written extensively on the subject. But among the top things that she's done, she was elected to the American College of Employee Benefits Council, the only Nebraskan to be elected to that college. She also is elected or is a member of the ALI. So Professor Medill told me that she's going to reveal all of the secrets of the Affordable Health Care Act in less than 15 minutes. So you're about to see magic performed before your very eyes. And what she really said is that it's going to be the rest of the story. Everything that the media has not told us about the Affordable Health Care Act. And she's going to do it all in 15 minutes or less. And who has gone? Okay. You have your watch ready to go? On your mark? Good, set, go. Thank you.
Chris, you got me. All right, I first of all have to apologize for my voice. I totally lost it.
Too far. There we go.
Due to spring allergies. Can you hear me okay in the back?
There we go.
Okay, good. Well, I said this to a former student who said, "Oh, I'm so disappointed. I just really miss you yelling at us." So, sorry, I'm not going to yell at you. All right. I'm also going to apologize for my cover sheet here. This isn't some fancy pseudo meaning. I spilled my coffee on this. And I'm trying to fix it. So, okay. Well, I think everybody knows that the Supreme Court last week heard this very important case called Kane versus Burwell. And there was tremendous publicity about it. But most people don't understand how the Affordable Care Act works. And so I wanted to give you just a little bit on that. And then we'll talk about Kane versus Burwell. And then I'll tell you what all my inside sources are betting on how that case comes out. And then we'll take some questions and have some more refreshments. So just a little bit on the Affordable Care Act. Okay, I see a few of my employee benefits law students in the audience here, and they can tell you there's a lot more to it than this. But what most people don't understand is the act is really tricky. Okay? It's tricky in that you just hear the word employees. So in 2016, if you have 50 or more employees, that's all that's ever reported. An employer has to offer affordable coverage that provides a basic package of benefits. But it's far more complicated than that. And so the statute creates this thing, 2 classes of employees, and they operate very differently. So an FTE is a full-time employee who works 30 or more hours. And there's a reason you've heard about a lot of people being cut to full-time, less than full-time status, and we'll show you how that works in just a minute. The requirement to provide coverage is based on what's known as a full-time equivalent employee. And so what employers have to do is they take all their part-time people, and I'm grossly simplifying here, but you add them up, you add their hours up, and you divide the number of hours by 30. And that's how they determine whether or not you hit your 50 employee threshold. And of course, in 2015, right now, although the statute says full-time 50 equivalent employees, the government's decided to phase this in. So right now the number's at 100. But going into 2016, it will drop to 50 And so to avoid everybody firing or slashing people's hours, on December 31st, 2015, the statute has look-back periods. So basically, you have to slash your workforce for 2016 by December 31st of 2014. And all the employers, they all know how this works. So, why does this matter? An employee is an employee, right? This is the part that isn't explained in the meeting. Under the Affordable Care Act, the employer is only required to offer health insurance to true full-time employees. So if you're 29 hours or below, you're not entitled to health insurance through your employer, and odds are the only other place you might get it is on exchanges, which I'll get to Kane versus Burwell in a minute. Okay. The other thing that people don't know is that penalties for non-compliance are, again, it's all tied to you have to be a full-time employee, okay? And in addition, if you're an employer, your first 30 of these full-time employees are what they're called freebies, meaning you don't get a penalty for them. So I'll show you in just a second how that becomes pretty important moving forward in 2016. Okay. So here's where we're at in the enforcement timeline. So although the law says all this was going to kick in 2014, there was just no way it was ready. And so the government's adopted what's called a non-enforcement policy and made up some new transition rules through regulatory action. So right now we're sitting in 2015 where if you have 100 or more full-time equivalent employees, you have to provide minimum health care coverage to 70% of your full-time employees, and you get 80 freebies. So in places like Nebraska, with the exception of a few very large employers, we don't have that many employers that have that many full-time employees. What people in Nebraska are looking at, employers in Nebraska are looking at 2016. Remember, all that spending had to be done back in 2014. Because that's when the numbers drop, and that's where employers in places like Nebraska in particular are going to really start to feel the impact of this, right? You drop down to 50 full-time equivalent employees, and you have to offer coverage effectively. I know you all think that all means all, but for the IRS, HHS, and DOL, all doesn't mean all. All means 95%. And then you get your 30 freebies. So suppose you're an employer and you don't want to offer health insurance. Now, all my students know this, but we've talked about this statistic in class quite a bit. The actual cost of offering individual health insurance coverage, the Kaiser Family Foundation, and this was back in 2013, the costs have risen since then. They do a survey of, a broad-based survey, small, medium, large employers. The average cost for individual health insurance coverage is roughly $5,800. On average, employers cover 80% of that cost. So let's just do rough math. Call it $6,000. 80% times 6,000 leaves $4,800 is what an employer would, on average, pay to offer individual coverage to an employee. So once you know those numbers, you see that the penalty provisions are not very punitive, and in fact, consultants do tell employers, your cheapest option is always to offer no coverage at all. It's by far cheaper to pay what's known as the pay-or-play penalty. So let's break this down a little bit, and we'll start to tie it into the subsidy system in Kane versus Burwell. Okay. The first penalty, the pay or play penalty, is what applies if an employer offers no health insurance at all. If they have one full-time, true full-time employee who applies for individual coverage on an exchange and qualifies for a subsidy because they're under 400% of the federal poverty level. That one employee can trigger this $2,000 penalty, and the penalty is assessed then on all full-time employees of that employer, whether or not they independently have health insurance coverage. Okay. Now, I say it's assessed on all, but remember you always get your 30 freebies. Okay, so the first 30 employer will pay any penalty on. Okay. So, if you want to avoid that penalty, what you do if you're an employer is you offer some health insurance coverage. And here's the part the media doesn't tell you. There's no requirement to get out of the pay or play penalty that you offer real health insurance. If you're an employer, all you have to do is cover one thing. So you could offer only a prescription drug policy plan. If you did that, you're out of this penalty altogether, because minimum essential coverage is not the same thing of what you would think of as real health insurance, okay? Now, a lot of employers do go ahead and offer real health insurance, but they're not required to do that to get out of this penalty, okay? So, the second penalty is what's called the free rider penalty, and the idea here is that we don't want employers free riding on the exchange system for their lower wage employees. So the way this free rider penalty works, the penalty is only assessed on a full-time employee who either the employer offers coverage but it's not affordable, and there are definitions of that, but the common definition is 9.5% of W-2 wages, and the employer or the employer's plan fails to provide, it's called 60% minimum value. So take my skinny mini only prescription drug coverage plan. That will get you out of this penalty, but that will fail the minimum value test. Okay. Minimum value test, HHS came up with a standardized basic package, and your employer plan has to cover 60% of what a base package would cover. Okay. So, the key here is, though, the penalty is only triggered, it's only per full-time employee, and it's only if, in addition to failing these requirements, that employee goes on the exchange and gets a subsidy. Okay. So that's pretty complicated. I might pause for 30 seconds here and take some clarifying questions, and now I'm going to show you how this ties into Kane versus Burwell, which was heard last week. Is everybody tracking so far? The key is to trigger penalties, you got to have people apply and get coverage with a subsidy. All right, so Kane versus Burwell. Here we go. Without having to read the 2,200-page statute, it boils down to this. In Section 1311 of the Affordable Care Act, Congress said authorize these state-established exchanges. In another section, and there's a lot of controversy about why Congress did this, okay, and you heard that all on CNN last week. In Section 1321, it authorized the federal government to set up exchanges for states that opted out and said, we're not going to establish our own exchange, okay? So, for example, to bring this home here, Nebraska really considered establishing its own exchange, and in the end, they decided not to. Iowa, though, has its own exchange, okay? Nebraska uses a federal exchange. And in the end, only 14 states established their own exchanges, and 36 opted to use a federal exchange under this opt-out provision. Cut. So that created a huge statutory interpretation problem that another provision in the Affordable Care Act said this section 36B authorized these premium assistance tax credits, and they're known as subsidies, right? And the language is pretty clear. It says for qualifying individuals who enroll in coverage, and then this is what the statute says. And remember, this is a state-operated exchange. Okay. So early on, although the national media poo-pooed it, they said these people are kooks, that's crazy. You know, it wasn't that crazy to say, hey, this is what it says. And so there's a lot of controversy about this on the administrative side, a lot of back and forth, and then finally the Internal Revenue Service came out and issued this regulation which said, we think, using our Chevron administrative interpretive authority, that the subsidy should be available to everyone, whether they're getting coverage through the state exchange under 1311 or using the federal exchange under 1321. Okay. You guys were just really somber. This isn't supposed to be somber. And this is really fun and fascinating. I just love this stuff. So I've been living this for 4 years and trying to keep my mouth shut in the faculty lounge. So, all right. Because a lot of people have opinions on this. I'm not sure. I'm gone?
Sorry.
Oh my God. I can't be gone. I need 5 more minutes. Are you going to give me 5 minutes?
I'm not in charge.
Mitch said 5. I only need 5 minutes to finish the story, okay? You can't really understand Kane versus Berlin unless you understand what's really going on here. So, legal challenges. A couple of states, what's interesting is, although ERISA, the law I teach, only applies to private employers, the ACA applies to government employers too. So the states of Oklahoma and Indiana went nuts, right? Their insurance isn't going to qualify as affordable. They're not, they're federal exchange states. They challenged it. Private employers challenged it. A lot of people may have heard of the DC Circuit in one private challenge called How Big ruled 2-1 in July for the taxpayers and said that that regulation I just showed you was beyond the scope of their administrative authority. Okay, it was in violation of the statute. So the Fourth Circuit, in another case, which is Kane versus Burwell, ruled for the government. Okay, and then this is where it got really interesting. So the DC Circuit stepped in and vacated the Halbig. This was just a 3-judge panel decision. So if this is vacated, technically there's no circuit split here. We just have one circuit ruling in favor of the Internal Revenue Service, right? So that's why when the Supreme Court granted cert in Kane versus Burwell, which is a case that comes up from the Fourth Circuit, people went nuts. And look at this is the exact question that this court took cert on, right? So you can just read it for yourself and I'll spare my voice. So take a drink when you've finished reading that. All right, well, so that's the question presented that the court heard last week. And so by now, you know, everybody's heard all the arguments. The arguments boil down to this. Plain language, Your Honor. Overall policy. If you get the subsidies, all these people can't afford their exchange policy, and all these employers in these 36 federal exchange states are going to be let off the hook. That's not quite true. You know, I can talk to you about that. But that's where the case sits. And so I think I've already been gone. So I think I'll quit there. I have other things up here, depending on where the questions go, that might lead us. But I want to open this up to questions. So. All right. Yes. Kate.
So, what are your top secret sources on the inside?
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay. So my employee benefits law class, of course, I gave you a preview of Kane versus Burwell, and I said, and I said this after I listened to what was happening in the oral argument. I said I bet $1, but only $1, that the subsidies are upheld based on Chevron administrative agency difference. But I'd only bet $1 on that, no more. After that, I have these networks of people that consult with me and I talk to and all this stuff. And so then I heard from a super secret source that if I told you, then I'd have to kill you or they would kill me. That, who has the biggest stake in this? Well, it's obviously the insurance companies, right? I mean, they're the ones that are getting these huge subsidy payments for offering these policies on the exchange. So a little bird told me that legal counsel in DC, who's been representing the insurance companies of the world, is telling their clients to be prepared. These subsidies are probably going to be struck down. So I was pretty shocked by that one. And now, we can tie it back in. Remember when Justice Roberts came and talked? What was his big pitch? The one thing I want people to know about the Supreme Court is what? Or apolitical. Okay. I think he realized there is no way he can vote here. It's not going to be political, right? So, I have no idea. And he was really quiet in oral arguments. So, yeah, that's in response to your question. That's what my secret sources have told me. And, I only have $1 bet riding on this. The insurance companies in the world have been no joke. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars riding on this case because they've restructured their whole industry to, use these exchanges and sell policies on these exchanges. So,
So given the insurance market death spirals that have happened in the states that have federal exchanges, do you have an opinion as to whether any of the states that lose their subsidies and choose to set up state markets if subsidies do start down?
Wow, I don't have an opinion. I just can't wait for the politics and for to fly. I mean, I have heard, and it's been tendered, that the Republicans in Congress have a plan in waiting. I actually, my students got this, but I have 3 slides of alternatives to the Affordable Care Act, all of which, people have talked about that I'm sure you guys haven't heard of because they're not on CNN, okay? But, part of the problem here is I was walking for lunch hour because it was so nice. And, everybody wants to believe that everyone can have free, high-quality health care at a price they can afford, right? Well, that's just not possible. And so the question is, politically, every policy question boils down to who are going to be the winners, who are going to be the losers, and how big is the losing voting bloc, and will they turn out to vote? So, are there things you can do to make things better among certain groups? Yeah, I really think they are, but that would require, real thought from Congress, and not, a bunch of rhetoric. So, it would require, real adult cooperation between the executive branch and Congress. So I just don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot. It all says this: if people say we have to have the Affordable Care Act system or it's, you know, there's no other alternative. That's just disingenuous. That's all I'll say. Great question. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it possible if they strike down the subsidy part of the Affordable Care Act that they would force the taxpayers to actually pay the subsidy back to the government?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, we've talked about that in class, Schmid. So has anybody followed what H&M Block did, where, you know, they're doing all these tax returns for people that got subsidies, and guess what? We got paid too much of a subsidy, so like, you know, 50 million people owe the government, they got to pay part of their subsidy back because their income wasn't calculated correctly, because when you signed up for insurance, it just kept using your income in 2012. Of course, most people's income goes up, right? So that's another glitch on the system. But what the service did there was they said, and I just love this. I mean, you know, I wish, my kids wish there'd be a non-enforcement policy at our house, right? We have rules, and they're going to start invoking non-enforcement policy on me. I don't know what I'm going to do. But what the service said there was, you know, we know the law says that if you got too much in a subsidy, then you got to pay it back. But we're going to have a non-enforcement policy on that. So I think what's going to happen is predictions. I bet $10 on this prediction. Kane versus Burwell, the opinion will come out on the last day possible of the summer term, at which point all the justices will scurry off to Europe where they will not be available for comment. And that puts us fiscally on the taxpayer year at roughly the end of July. And so I think we're going to see certainly a non-enforcement policy, because I mean, we hate the IRS now, right? How much will people hate them when they come back and say, oh, you know, that $8,000 or whatever you got in subsidy, you have to pay it back? Because remember, who are the people getting the subsidies?
Low income.
The people who are under 400% of their own poverty level. So when I say they have to pay the subsidy back, what's really happening is they tend to also qualify for the earned income tax credit, where the government sends them money, or they're going to get a tax refund. And so what's supposed to happen is that's supposed to be offset. Instead, it's not going to be offset, and they're going to be getting their full refund under their earned income tax credit, because non-enforcement policy. You know, is that in law? No. You know, my administrative law people can stand up now and defend Chevron deference if they want to. Not seeing anybody stand up though. So that's what I would be really interesting. I still can't quite wrap my brain around they would strike this down. But, you know, that's what I heard, and that's what the insurance companies are. They are developing contingency plans as we speak, because their business depends on it. Any questions? All right, show of hands. Wait, I get a show of hands. Who thinks the subsidies will be struck down? Raise your hand. Okay. Who thinks not? Okay, nods are slightly ahead. Well, we'll